Hi, how's it going? This is Resident of Collinwood for you. Get back with another Dark Shadows video, and I'll have one up tomorrow or two. With that Dark Shadows Twitter, we're doing 1970 parallel time, which will be really interesting. But today, I'm here to talk about, in depth, the 2012 Dark Shadows movie. It feels like I talk about this one a lot simply because it is agitating. It's one that, I own all three Dark Shadows movies. I own the Coffin box set. You guys know this, huge DS fan. And I remember hearing the announcement of Johnny Depp's involvement, and at that time, Johnny Depp was at an all-time high. How could you not be excited, right? So I was excited. Man, Johnny Depp as Barnabas, I was ecstatic. I'm like, man, we got a huge ass name to come aboard Dark Shadows, and Tim Burton. At the time, I had two images of this potential movie. Everyone already points to sort of Sleepy Hollow, and I did too. But a movie that Tim Burton didn't direct Depp in was oh God, what was that movie he did? It was like a Stephen King movie or something, where he was a killer and a writer. I forget the name of it. I'm horrible. Um, but that imagery, that was, I'm thinking, man, how dark is this movie going to be? No pun intended. And that was my hope, that Dark Shadows was going to be many things, not just horror, because the original Dark Shadows series isn't just horror. Where you could sort of look at the two movies and say, well, they are sort of horror esque. Though I would say, they're not without their other elements, though, either. There's romance, there's drama, there's other things in them. It's not just strictly horror. Not that there's anything wrong with that. So, my hopefulness of this when it first came out was at an all time high. When I saw the trailer, the teaser, that is, I was like, don't know. But before that, I remember a friend of mine, because I wasn't keeping track of everybody they had casted. The last name I had heard was Michelle Pfeiffer. I'm thinking, oh wow, really? Like, that was shocking. Like, when you look at a movie that has a who's who of who's in it, this is it. Like, the 2012 movie, I mean, Michelle Pfeiffer, Eva Green, Jackie Earle Haley. I will forever feel sorry for Jackie Earle Haley, because he's a really good actor and he gets put in some pretty bad fucking situations. I don't know why that guy does. I don't know, someone has it out for him or something, but I always feel like he got, he got jobbed in the Nightmare on Elm Street remake. But I actually liked his Willie Loomis. We just don't see a lot of him. There's a line in there I'm going to get to. I think you guys know it. And it's just like, you could see John Carlin saying these lines. Patrick McRae, shout out to him, touched upon that too. And this is how crazy this is too. When you look at this movie, you look at who's in it, like, man, how did this fail? How did this not work? And then you look at the writing, and you look at the movie, how the way it was written, because of the way it's being showed, and you see real quick how it didn't work. It just was written horribly. Now, was it written completely horrible? That's where I'll get to first, because it's easy to pick this thing apart. Okay, I love the past scene where they're in the past, and how I don't necessarily mind how Johnny Depp is cursed, because it's different. It's more like a witchcraft movement of, a feather, Do I wish they would have went with the traditional bat through the window? Yes, simply because, not because that's the story I know, simply because I feel they could have told a better story in the past. I don't think the story they tell is bad, but I do feel at times that those sequences aren't all bad, but there's some sequences they could have did better. For example, the death of his parents. Like, how could you not know it was Angelique? Again, this is Dark Shadows. My biggest issue with this, with Dark Shadows as a movie franchise and all, is really is where all three movies do this. They all try to tell their story within a 2 hour, like a 2 hour frame, and that's every movie. But and don't get me wrong, I know all movies do that. But here's my thing: if you're going to tell a deeper story, involving Barnabas, if you're going to tell his origin story with it, then why not try to make this more than one movie? That's where I'll start, really. The 2012's biggest mistake was trying to be a bunch of things at the same time. Was trying to be, well, let's tell Barnabas's origin story here, which I don't think they did wrong. I don't think they did it badly. But trying to tell Barnabas's origin story here, then trying to tell this story over here, and that story really just went off on and off the rails, and primarily it went off the rails in every direction, to the point of it's like, hey, am I supposed to root against Angelique? And when that's the thing too, when you're doing that, when you're sort of debating whether you should root for or against Angelique, and you're more rooting for, or you're finding her the most interesting character, that now don't get me wrong, Laura Parker, great actress, and her Angelique is interesting too. But man, you hate her Angelique to death. I mean, let me give a great example. In the original series, and when Angelique curses Barnabas, a lot of things happen, and I know I'm jumping around, so I apologize for that. When Angelique curses Barnabas, a lot of things go down. Not just the vampire bat, yeah, sure, but the events after that is, again, the curse really does take effect. Okay, Sarah sees Barnabas, and then Sarah gets sick and die. Then, if you notice, this is when really Nathan Forbes is sort of becoming a heel too, after the curse. This is what I mean by, did Angelique's curse affect Nathan in a way? Because Nathan's not a dick until after it happens. That's what I find most interesting. And I do think there's something to that too. I think there's a part of that curse that, and don't get me wrong, being that is a choice, sure, no doubt. But there's something to it, I think, in my opinion. If you disagree, fine. Now, when Barnabas comes back, I said Sarah dies because she sees him and she follows him. And he's like, oh no. So Sarah dies. This is a part of Angelique's curse. Everyone Barnabas loves will die. Barnabas loved that little girl. And when she gets sick, and Jonathan Frid Jonathan Frid holding the Jonathan Frid's character Barnabas holding Sarah Collins, you can see the pain in his face of losing his sister. Like, no, you shouldn't be dying. Like, no. And that's where you go, mother. And that right there will make you hate Angelique forever. Like the death of a kid. That's what I mean by, you should not like the character of Angelique. Because she's so despicable, right? She'll kill, murder just to get Barnabas or get to him, and she doesn't care who she does it to. She tries to act like, oh, that was your fault. And I'm like, well, was it really? Like, you cursed my family. I shot you because you were hurting her anyway. God, yes, Barnabas is still a horrible shot with a gun. Um, So there's that. That's what I mean by you should not hate, or sorry, you should not like the character of Angelique. In the original series, there was no liking this character. Sure, there's things she does later on. It's like, okay, good for you, great, but it's like, I'll say this: when Angelique helps Barnabas in 1897, I'm not going, oh, so you're good now, or this, I like you. No, I'm just going, you owe that man. You owe that man. So that's how I felt about it. But that's the thing, though, too. In the 2012 movie, there's none of that. But Barnabas does bring up, you kept me in a box for 200 years. That's what I'll say. Like, it's done. And she just like, no big deal, get over it. And really, if you think about it, there's no Sarah. The death of his parents were so quick. They weren't like, poisoned or nothing. What I'll say is death needed to be more meaningful in this movie at plot point times. And it just wasn't. And that's what I'll say. That's another big issue too. Oh, yes, I will get to the pros of this movie. Don't worry. I'm not going to just sit here and shit on it. It's not a hit piece. What's the other issues of this movie? Simply some of the characters. Roger, let's get to Barnabas. Johnny Depp's Barnabas Collins. Every time I go back and watch this movie, it feels like Johnny Depp's trying to find his Barnabas. Every time I watch this, it's like, who are you and who are you trying to be? And again, I think a lot of this has to do with the writing and the fact that, hey, Johnny Depp was the busiest dude on the planet at this point in his time. So it makes me wonder how much he was able to really bring to this character. I'm not saying he phoned this in a sense, but I do think some of that's there to the point of, man, you can tell he's trying, but at the same time, it's like, this should have been prepared for, and that's what I'll say. One of the worst offenders is the character of Roger Collins, and I gotta say, this is where it felt like they were trying to stuff a bunch of characters in one. Roger was trying to be Roger, the egotistical asshole that we've all known and loved, but at the same time, Roger was trying to be Quentin. Because he was hitting on women, he was very. So there's that. I feel at times, again, this is the product of this movie being, I think, at times rushed and at times just badly written. My biggest issue is Roger, everyone making a big deal of Roger leaving. It's like, I get David's mom is dead, but what was Roger really doing for David? I mean, was he really there for him? Was Barnabas was actually talking to David? That's what I don't get. It's like, okay, if Barnabas is going to be more the father figure of David, and you could sort of sense that in that movie, why do we make a big deal of Roger leaving? Like, I get that's his dad. I get but his dad, I'm sure the kid could see his dad was a dick. Like, come on. And that's one thing I'll say. It's just like, I didn't really care to see like, if when the character left, it didn't really bother me. It's like, and really them trying to portray it up as it bothering the kid really bothered me because it's like, dude, we you talk about knowledge is power, then you can't make that kid, stupid to the point of he doesn't know his dad's a dick. Like, he's got to know. Like, come on, he can clearly see it, and anyone who's watched that movie can clearly see it. So, I'm trying to think of if I've nailed all the cons. Now, Dr. Julia Hoffman giving Barnabas, well, you know what it is. Um, God, going down on Barnabas, and it's like, come on, like, really? I know this moment isn't just meant to be sexual; it's meant to be humorous. Because let's call a spade a spade. Look, the original series didn't have sex, but but here's the thing, though. Too here's what I'll say to that. It may have not have showed sex, but it knew how to hint it. It knew how to let you know. But the actors and actresses in the original series knew how to give off the body chemistry of if their characters had sex, and that's something I'll say that the original Dark Shadows does very well. Angelique and Barnabas, for example, when my wife had watched Dark Shadows with me, when Angelique walked in the door and her and Barnabas start interacting with each other, my wife goes, "Well, they fucked," and I'm like, "Wait, what do you mean?" And she goes, "Well, look," she goes, "You can tell Barnabas and Angelique have had sex before." She goes, "Come on, like their body chemistry screaming it," and that's one thing my wife helped me pick up on a lot too. She goes, "You got to pay attention to people's body chemistry in this because." She goes, most likely some of these characters, had sex with one another, and Angelique and Barnabas are it's screaming it. And when I went back and watched it, I'm like, yeah, I see what she's saying. So there's that too. With this, I find this senseless and just dumb. It's like, it makes no, I don't get the point of it. I get she's not a great person, sure. Julia Hoffman was utterly pointless in this movie, as was Roger, and I do think that's one of the biggest complaints I do have. There's just times where your characters are all but pointless in this movie. What are the pros? Because I feel I've hit all the cons. The sound stages they use, the set pieces, or sorry, I should say, were beautiful. The sets were beautiful. The house, the wind cliff, the way they used the wind, the town, all the sets were just amazing. I think that's something this movie doesn't get enough praise for. Is its set design look great? How great do the sets look? They look great. They look awesome. And another thing too is I love that they address like how long it's been. It's been a long time. It's been years. One of my favorite things in this movie is Eva Green and, well, Michelle Pfeiffer. They really make this movie watchable. When you look at this movie from a standpoint of what's it good about, well, when you watch Eva Green and Michelle Pfeiffer together on set, man, they just go and they're really good at it. They're really just back and forth, and it's great. I'm not saying Barnabas and Angelique don't have that. They do, like Johnny Depp and Evergreen. I do feel they have that, but again, it's the tone of the conversation. I guess to sort of defend it in a way because I feel like I've been just shitting on this, and I don't want it to sort of defend it in a way. I've talked about the original series and how Angelique would do anything to get Barnabas. Well, in a sense, that's what Angelique's doing here. She wants Barnabas for all time sexually. Um, God, that one, Nympho? Is that how you say it? Nympho? Yeah, Nymphomaniac. Okay, that's Angelique. That's Angelique in this movie, Nymphomaniac. It really is. It's like she is. So it's that crazy. So you do have this interaction between Johnny Depp and Evergreen that aren't bad. It's pretty good. And but I think there's moments it's like, okay, that I get you want to destroy his family, but let's consider what's coming later. David's mother is dead. David's mother is dead, which she probably helped cause. She's turned Carolyn into a werewolf. It's like, when I mean, you curse this guy to be a vampire. What, from a consequence standpoint, it doesn't feel like the only thing you've really taken away from them is their almost their way of life, is their way of living. And really, it's like that's nothing that they haven't been trying to get back in this movie. So it's like, I guess that's where I'll ask, where's the real consequences at? Where's the I'll give an example. In the original series, when Sarah dies, she dies. Yes, you see her ghost in the 60s, sure, but that makes her death all the more sad. You know what I mean? That makes her death. Sarah's death is sad. Where's that at in this movie? Where's that sad moment at? Where's that moment of sadness that you felt in the original series? And there are a lot of the moments like that in the original series. And there's just not that here. So to defend this though character, I like Willie Loomis, John or Jackie Earle Haley's. I said John Carlin, Jackie Earle Haley's Willie Loomis. I love his Willie Loomis. My favorite line in this movie is when Barnabas kills Julie and they're dumping the body in the ocean or whatever. Willie Loomis, I won't tell anybody, Barnabas. I never liked that bitch anyway. And it's just a funny line, and he nails it, and it's beautiful. That is one of my favorite lines in this movie. And it's like I really wanted to see more of Willie Loomis in this movie. They don't show a ton of him, unfortunately. They don't have a lot of him. Jack Earl Haley as Willie Loomis is good. I mean, he really is. He's one of the most likable characters in this movie, and I love him for it. Thank you to Jack Earl Haley. Michelle Pfeiffer and Evergreen too. I think their performances don't get appreciated enough. And they do make the movie watchable. Are there other scenes as well? Sure, and I'm going to get to those now. You know, one of my favorite scenes in this movie is when you see the ghost of Josette and Maggie Evans in the diner, and the ghost of Josette is pointing to the newspaper saying, "Hey, go here." I love this because if you're going to have a ghost moment, this is it. This makes sense. This woman, Maggie, got committed to Wincliffe, to an asylum, because guess what? They didn't understand her. They didn't understand why she was able to talk to the dead, and they just didn't want to believe that, so they committed her. I think that's one of the most sad. Okay, I take it back. Dark Shadows, the 2012 movie, does sort of have a sad moment, and it's Maggie knowing how much of a dick Maggie's parents are. It's sort of like sad because it's like there's nothing like, why can't you just talk to this girl about this? But again, those are different times, so they commit her, and it sort of is sad that they're committing her and she had to escape. You sort of do feel sorry for this girl that she literally has to hide her identity and change it because, well, she doesn't want anyone looking for her, because she doesn't want to go back to a sanitarium. And why should she? You know, she doesn't speak up about what she sees though, because again, she's still afraid. You sort of sense that too once she gets to the great house. Even after she's changed her name, she wants to introduce herself as Maggie Evans, but she looks at her son and she goes, "My name is Victoria Winters." And then when she gets to the great house, and she starts seeing, ghosts and stuff. It's she doesn't really want to tell anybody until she meets Barnabas, and she feels like, I've known you all my life. We all get that she's reincarnation, um, which they've done before in Dark Shadows. Which hey, I think the biggest like pro of this movie really though is when you're watching it, you really get to watch certain actors work and work their craft to perfection. Again, I've talked about Michelle Pfeiffer and Evergreen. They do work their craft to perfection in this movie. Um, Again, it's not a great movie. It's not a story that's going to win an award or win you over. No, it's not. I've said, I did a video, Let's Rewrite the 2012 Dark Shadows movie, and I've talked about, what I have liked to have seen before. And I think, if Dark Shadows were to ever get made into a movie series, to me it needs to be a three movie set, not just try to be one whole movie. I think that's a lot to ask for a television series that was over 1,000 episodes long. You don't need to try to squeeze 1,000 episodes within 2 hours. That's just insane and impossible. Come on now. Um, that's another thing too. Like Alice Cooper being cast as Alice Cooper in this movie, and I wanted to scream. I wanted Alice Cooper as Barnabas's father, um, and it to be a more serious role. I've talked about Dr. Joshua Collins, Joshua being a good man, and the curse does eventually get to him and make him go insane. That's something they could have done, but before that, he tries to cure his son of vampire. Barnabas would have been bit by the vampire, and they perform a blood transfusion, and they're giving him all this blood. They're trying to save his life. Him and Jeremiah, Joshua's getting it done. It looks like there's some glimmer of hope. They leave Sarah in the room to watch him because they're tired. They're beat trying to save this guy's life. They don't know what to do. They don't know what, they just know he's been attacked. Sarah wakes up and he's solid gray. He's dead. And she screams. They come in the room and Josh was trying to like give him, revive his heart, giving him CPR, mouth to mouth, hitting his chest. Like, God damn it, breathe. You imagine seeing that and not shedding a tear, because I would have. If they would have showed half of that, I'd have shed a tear. And in a way of like, oh shit, he's gone. Like, what's coming, but still, you didn't want this guy to lose his son. He tried to save his life. And then right after that comes the death of Sarah. Like he loses his kids close together, where it's like, oh shit, this guy's like getting one slap after the other. And again, that's something they could have had in this movie, and they don't. That's something they still could do in a Dark Shadows movie. We just don't know if they ever will or won't. You know. Again, what do I give this movie? A two. It's not great. Again, I give. I've called out the good things. There are good things in it. But again, there are just so many bad things in it that it is cringe. But in the same sense too, people ask me, should should you watch the 2012 Dark Shadows movie? And I say, yeah, sure, if you want to. Why not? It's a movie. It's there. I would never tell somebody not to watch a movie. Sure, there are things I don't like about this movie. There are things that I just can't stand. But there are good things too in this movie. This movie probably has the best score of the three, I gotta admit. Um, Danny Elfman, who else? I mean, look, they used the Dark Shadows theme. This movie had the probably, I don't know, to me, I put it Night of Dark Shadows, and right after that, the 2012 movie for scores, and then House first. That's how I do my scoring. And I'm not usually someone who judges that sort of thing. But for Dark Shadows, I will, because Dark Shadows did have a great score of the original series. So there is that. And so I put Night of Dark Shadows, the 2012 movie, right behind it, and then, House of Dark Shadows for the score. For the movies, in my view, Night of Dark Shadows, to me, it's my favorite. House, I know people would flip flop it, and I get it why. And then obviously the 2012 movie, it's the low man on the totem pole, and it's forever going to remain that way simply because of the way it was written and the way it was done. And, but I do think this is a movie people should go watch. Again, I wasn't trying to make this video a hit piece. I think that gets done way, way too often with this movie. In my mind, it's like, look, I get the movie's frustration. This wasn't just some rant. I know I've been talking for almost 30 minutes, but if I had to tell you what this movie did right, really, the best thing this movie did was bring a younger audience to watch the original series. And that's something you can't ever take away from Tim Burton and Johnny Depp. That being said, you guys have a great day. Sorry for the lengthy video this morning about the 2012 Dark Shadows movie. I'm sure I've missed something in there. Let me know what you guys think. You guys have a great day.